Yo, what up, everybody? My name is TricksterShadow. If you're new to my channel, I've been uploading gameplay of VHS, which is in closed beta currently, and it's probably going to be in closed beta, I imagine, for a little bit longer. And I've put in probably about 30 hours, I think is what my stat says, like closer to 30 hours. And so through my 30 hours of gameplay of playing a lot of Monster and a lot of Teen, which is this game's equivalent of Survivor and Killer, I think I've identified some things that I would like to have changed in this game. That being said, I think that this game is honestly very good. I think that it's in an incredible place. But that won't stop me from complaining about things because I am a content creator. And so today, I just kind of wanted to sit down, do a little bit different style of video. I usually just upload gameplays from my stream onto my channel, which if you haven't checked out my stream, be sure to check it out. Twitch.tv/TricksterShadow, the link in the description. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen me do these type of videos before, I haven't really done one of these in a few weeks. It's basically where I sit down, have gameplay go on in the background. This is just a video I recently uploaded, and we just kind of talk about the game. And so what I'm going to do is I have 10 different things, and they're of varying importance. I'm going to do like the least important things, or the least like impactful things first. But I'm going to list out 10 different things that I would like to see changed in the game. And now these 10 things, I don't think they're like fully detrimental to the gameplay. I think that the game, it would be fine if they didn't change them. It's just I think that it would enhance the experience. Personally, I think it would enhance the experience if they change these things. And you don't have to agree with me. Even if you don't agree with me, I would love to see your opinion, comments down below, especially because this game is in beta. Maybe there's like certain situations that I didn't consider. Maybe there's like certain ways of playing the game that I haven't even considered because I don't have that much time in the game. These are just my opinions through playing 30 hours of the game, and so I'm still novice at the game. And I'm very curious to see what you guys think. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to get a little bit of notepad out, and we're just going to cover the gameplay, but I'll move it every time that I type something out, just so you guys can still have something in the background. So the first thing I want to have changed, and this is a relatively small thing, but the first thing I want to have changed is allow for the ability, I'm probably going to spell things wrong, to click to hold. And so what this means is basically if you go up to a crafting table as Teen, or if you go up to heal somebody and they're not like fully recovered, you have to hold down the button in order to continue the channeling action while you do like the mini game or while you do skill checks. And I think that it would be really nice if you could just like press the button and it would hold there until you like press it again, or until you do another button prompt, like running. And that way you just don't have to hold on the button. It's a very lazy thing for me to ask for, but it's something that when I played Dead by Daylight, and there was a bug within Dead by Daylight where you could do this by holding down the button and then going to the menu and then getting out of the menu, and then you wouldn't have to hold down the button anymore. And that was such a nice feature that when they removed the ability to do that, it sucked. And so I just want, that's something like a small little thing that I want to have added. Again, this is very small. I'm starting off with the smaller things. I think that it would just be nice. This is something I would like to see, but it's not a super big priority. I think it would just be like a nice quality of life thing instead of having to hold on the button all the time. I'll put like while crafting / healing. And then the second thing that I want to have changed is when you're crafting a weapon. So when crafting a weapon, it shows you how many of that same weapon is being crafted. So essentially what I want to have happen is I want the so like say like you're on a fire station and there's somebody else on a fire station across the map, and that other person starts crafting a weapon. Now they can ping and indicate that they're on a fire station, but you won't actually know what they're crafting unless they're in voice comms and they tell you. And so what I want to have happen is I think it'd be cool if it showed you like when you're going to craft and it shows like the little selection wheel of like what you can craft. If it showed like either like the portrait of like who's crafting that specific weapon. So there's like a little portrait by the Molotov, or like a little number indicator that shows like a 1 near the Molotov, that one person is making that Molotov currently or has progress on the Molotov. That way you don't make like double Molotovs or double solar flares, stuff like that, because sometimes like solar flares are particularly like are very good weapons, but if you like stack them, then you don't have as many weapons to help push, because solar flares are good for like locking down an area, preventing a monster from like closing the gap, or like locking a monster into a position to where it can get ambushed. And when you have two of them or multiple of them, it kind of it can be good, can lend itself to good plays, but I feel like there's a lot of situations where it's not as good. And so I just want a little bit more information of like knowing like who is making what weapon, so that I can more more intelligently like craft my weapons or decide like what I want to do going forth without having to communicate with my team. That's just a little bit of like closing the gap between like people that are talking with each other and people that are just kind of vibing. All right. And then number 3, what I would like to have changed. One second, I just have like a list of things on the side. I just thought I'd type it out so that while I'm typing it, like if I think of anything else, I'll explain it. So the third thing I want to have changed, and these are going to get a little bit more complicated going forth. Third thing, mousetrap. So I'm going to spell this wrong. So mousetrap is currently a prize, which is this game's version of offerings. And what mousetrap does is it makes it to where if somebody runs the mousetrap offering, it's a monster offering, and any of the teams that didn't run a prize that changed their spawn, so like there's prizes to where like you can spawn by a crafting table, but you're furthest away from the killer, or you spawn with another team. If somebody, or if any of the teams didn't run any of those type of prizes, any of those types of offerings, then they will spawn right next to the monster. And a lot of matches, there won't be any of those. And so in a lot of matches, if you just run mousetrap, the entire team is going to spawn with you, which is very detrimental for a couple of reasons. One, after you transform immediately, and you're most likely going to transform immediately because everybody's by you, you're going to be able to get like an easy hit or two, which is immediately really bad for the team, since their health is more of a finite resource. Even with the candy bars, it's a finite resource. And then 2, it's bad because everybody is clumped up in that area instead of being spread out across the map, and so it's harder for them to craft weapons and more effectively pressure the monster, because the monster knows that everybody's going to be most likely in this area that you spawned by, and so it's more easily available to try to pressure everybody off the tables. And I think it's just a little bit too overtuned of a prize, and so I think that is just do something else. And so just give it a different effect. I don't think that any offering should be that crazy for monster. Like for instance, they had a plague, which is a different type of prize for the monsters, to where when you use it, then it'll make people bleed 350% faster. They nerfed it recently to 250%, which I think was good. We'll have to see if that's like enough of a nerf, because like forcing them to bleed that fast is crazy. Like just negates a full hit when it's at 350. I haven't really seen it at 250 though. Not many people have been running it. But yeah, I just think that like just give it a different effect. It's too powerful in its current state. I mean, like you could make it to where like I would try to think about it. Like you could make it to where like the mousetrap, instead of like if you run it, if anybody runs a prize to where they change their spawn, instead of them having like that effect, it does like the opposite effect. Or if they run a prize to where they'll spawn alone, then they spawn with other people. If they run a prize to where they like spawn furthest away from the monster, they'll spawn closest to the monster, stuff like that. That can make it a little bit more interesting. I just think that in its current state, it's a little bit too overtuned, especially with how little people run like spawning prizes. Usually the only time that people run spawning prizes is if they don't have any point prizes, and so people are going to be running points more often, and so you're pretty much always going to get value out of mousetrap. So I think it's a little bit overtuned. All right, and then number 4. So this is a little bit of a bigger one. This is something that I think that they should do. Actually, no, let me do this first. This is a little bit of a smaller one. before I get to the big ones. Add the ability to hold shift while prone on the ground. Holding shift will prevent other teams from picking you up in bad situations. So basically, there's been an issue recently to where people are kind of just like what DBD players will call farming, to where you'll be prone on the ground, 99, ready to be picked back up, and then somebody will pick you up right in front of the monster's face, and then you'll get smacked back down. You'll lose that hit worth of health, and you'll just keep on bleeding. And that feels really bad. And there's really not much you can do about it besides just like communicate to your teams, like, don't pick me up. But some people aren't listening, or they're just so new that they don't care to listen, and you just get farmed. And so I think that it'd be nice if you put a little bit more control in the team's hands that's on the ground, and made it to where when they're on the ground like that, they can just like hold down a button and prevent themselves from being picked up. Yeah, that can be abused in a certain way to where like people, they can just throw the game by not wanting to get picked up at all. But those people, they're most likely going to run in the face of the monster anyways and try to get downed. And so I don't think it's actually that big of a deal. Just a little bit more to help out with preventing it being farmed, I think would be nice. Because currently there's not much you can do. Everybody think the follow that's about to happen. Oh my god. No, it didn't show up. Oh, it didn't show up on the screen. I forgot the follow alerts aren't on this source. I thought it was going to interrupt me. Okay, now number 5. Now we're going to be going into the more influential ones. So this one, I think anybody that's played on the facility, which is the one that I'm currently showing gameplay of right now, I think that they should add better vaults to the facility. So currently there really aren't that good of vaults on the facility. The high school and the hotel have decent locations to where you can kind of loop the killer, loop the monster. But with monster powers and like a little bit of mind gaming, like they're not going to be super effective looping locations. But you can still like use them to like get a little bit of distance, so you can get to somebody that's ambushing. Or like if you get caught out early, you can survive a little bit longer so people can craft weapons. There's really nothing like that in the facility. The facility has the vault and the warehouse, which we just passed. This one. Yeah, the facility has this. This vault right here, which isn't really that great, and it's not really going to save you that much time. It also has, let me see if I can find it. Has another vault location, which is kind of meh. Let's see, do I ever go by it? I should go by it at some point. Maybe I don't. Wow. Actually pretty surprising that I don't go by it. But there's another vault location. It's by the test chamber. It's by this. There's a vault location. If you go up these stairs, then there's a vault location that doesn't really do anything for you, and you just essentially just fall into the monster's arms most times. And so I think that they need to add a little bit better vaulting locations, something to help with wasting a little bit of the monster's time so people can craft weapons. Because currently, I think this is the best monster map. It's pretty open, which kind of sucks for monster because people can get clear shots on you. But it also conversely is very good for monster in that way because it's harder for people to hide. And then it's also very good because people can't really vault against you. So like you're going to be having very fast chases most of the time unless people have weapons, because there's not really much they can do. So just add a little bit better vaults to the facility that people can kite a little bit more effectively. And I don't think that would be like too big of a thing. I mean, like you could make them, honestly, I think where they should place the vaults, in all honesty with you, I think they should place them like in the exhibit or the showroom, which are the rooms to the left and like the up a floor to the left, and just add a little bit of vaults. So, because like those are very central locations, and if they add a little bit of vaulting right there, I think that would make it a little bit better and make the gameplay a lot more fresh. All right. So number 6, what I would change is spread out crafting stations on the hotel. Now, what do I mean by this? Currently on the hotel, there is the library, and by the library, if you know what I'm talking about here, let me draw it out because I don't have gameplay, so let me draw it out. This is my solution. Whenever I don't have anything prepared, I just draw it with a little marker. So currently on the hotel, the hotel is just like a giant square, if you guys haven't seen it, and like in the middle there's a courtyard, and then the whole like building goes all around this courtyard. And currently there is a library. The library is like right here. There's a hallway behind it, and there is a crafting station inside the library. Most times there's also a crafting station on the upper floor, and there's also a crafting station on the lower floor, right next to the library, and there's also a crafting station right here. And then the other crafting stations, because these are 4 of the crafting elements, and there's 2 crafting stations for each element, each stigma. There's a shock stigma right here, and then there's a purify stigma right below that, and then there is a burn and curse down here, down in the basement. So this is down in another floor down below. And this one's up above. This one's up above as well. So it was this one. But for the sake of not confusing, I'm gonna get rid of those arrows. But yeah, so as you can see, like these ones are all grouped up. These ones are grouped up in like pairs of 2s, which isn't too bad, but these are grouped up in pairs of 4s. And what becomes really bad is a lot of times these 3 in particular will spawn so close to each other that if the monster is just like sitting in the middle of the library, you can hear all 3 of these, and sometimes you can hear all 4 if they spawn close enough to each other. And so I think that these need to be spread out a little bit more. Maybe make it to where like the one that's upstairs can't spawn so close to the library. Maybe make it to where the shock one downstairs spawns a little bit more towards reception, which reception is like somewhere over here. Of course, then you'd be able to contest it with all these 3, but at least it would separate, and it'd be 3 and 3 instead of 4 and 2. Just something to where like the monster doesn't have as much information just from being in the library, because currently the library is just such a good place to be for a monster in terms of information. There are ambush spots that you can get caught out as a monster there, but you get so much information just by going to the library. You're by like half of the crafting stations just being in one spot. So I think it's a little bit too good. I think they need to separate the crafting stations a little bit more there, and I think that'd be fine. I think if they just separated them a little bit more, made it to where you couldn't just get that much information on the jump, it'd be very good. Let's do number 7. So number 7, this is not so much a map thing. It's more of just like how the gameplay normally functions. So if you don't know, the way that this game works is it'll spawn a rift. Now, I don't know if a rift spawns in this match. Probably not, because I get so many hits. But normally a rift spawns, and what the rift is it's a capture point, and this capture point is very good for both sides to capture, because it basically spawns to like incentivize the gameplay. Either people like contest the capture point because both sides can capture it, whether they be monster or teen. So it's meant to drive people close together, and if they don't get drived close together, then if the teens capture it, they not only stagger the monster for a couple seconds and then reveal his location for 60, the monster can also have the same thing where he staggers the teens for a little bit, and then he also sees their auras for 60. Very similar to what you're seeing there, but that's a perk that I just got use out of in this match. So it gives you a lot of information just for capturing, and then that information goes away if you like hit somebody, or like if the game starts to progress. Basically, the information goes away, because that's all it's meant to do, is just progress the game. But what I've seen, and I've seen this mainly like if I'm playing Wart, there will be a lot of people that'll group up in the lobby, which is the area that I was just in, that I just hit this person in, and they'll group up with like 3 or 4 weapons, and they'll heal each other, and they'll just kind of sit in the lobby because they don't want to move, because it's such an open area where they can easily be able to get a kill off in there. They can easily break Wart's armor and then be able to get the kill. And so they don't really want to move, and so it becomes a thing of me having to wait for them to either move out of position, just like staring at them, have to move out of position, or me get my rage in order to like make it more ballsy play and hopefully get one of them down. And it just kind of slows down the gameplay a lot until like a rift spawns. So that kind of sucks. Or conversely, what can happen is like I'll be playing teen, or I'll see somebody else playing teen, like on a Twitch stream, and the monster will just constantly not engage. The monster, like, they'll be chasing the monster the entire game, and the monster will constantly be running away, too afraid to engage, until they have their enrage up, and then as soon as they have their enrage up, then they'll push, because they know that they can down somebody or kill somebody. And that feels kind of bad. And yeah, you can pinch the monster, but a lot of the time, by the time you pinch them, then they have their ability up to where they can get out of the pinch, and then by the time you pinch them again, then they have their ability again, like it's off cooldown, whether it be like Dollmaster with his teleport, or Werewolf with his howl and berserk, or Wart with his leap and his armor. They have some way of getting out of a pinch. And so it kind of lends itself to, like, when people play more passively, like, yeah, I understand it's a playstyle. I'm not like condemning people for doing that, but I just want something to help incentivize that not to be as good of a playstyle. And I think the way that they can do that is by buffing the Rift. So I was talking about the Rift. It shows like people's auras if that side captures it. What I think that they should do personally for the Rift is they should, here, let me just write this out. Buff the Rift. So for monster, what I think that they should do is, in addition to current effects, the Rift will now increase the passive rage modifier. So what that means is that while the Rift effects are active, so while you can see everybody's auras, the rate at which you passively gain rage, because you passively gain rage over time, you can kind of see it in this. So like if we begin at like the beginning of the match, you can see that I just have a little sliver of it, and then it like goes up over time. It's kind of hard to see when I'm constantly hitting people, but like it goes up over time. Just make it to where like if you capture the Rift, your rage passively goes up faster, and that you're more likely to become enraged because it's passively going up faster. And then that makes it to where the gameplay becomes a lot more aggressive, because you're constantly getting your rage if you capture the Rift, and that's a lot bigger of a reward, especially because you have the aura reading on them, especially with that. And so it makes it to where the engagement is more likely to happen. Now, conversely, if you're going to buff the Rift for monster, you should probably buff it for teen as well. And I think that for teen, they should make it to where, in addition to current effects, fully reset the monster's rage on capture. So if we're going to make it to where the monster more easily gets rage by capturing the Rift, then we'll make it to where the teens, they fully reset the monster's rage but when they capture it, making to where if the monster is trying to play really passively and doesn't want to engage at all, and then like if the monster like even like sees the Rift and they're like, I'm not going to go after the Rift, they're going to go there, then the monster doesn't get rewarded by still having his rage. And I think that would be really, really good. That would make it to where the monster, and I don't believe this is the thing. Watch this actually be the case. That's kind of my fear. I don't think this is the case. At least if this is the case, I haven't noticed it because I'm always contesting the Rift. But I don't think it fully resists rage currently. Hopefully it doesn't. But I think that would make it to where the monster just doesn't get rewarded for just passively playing. And if they choose not to contest the point, then they're even more so at a detriment because of it. I think that these two changes of the Rift would make the gameplay a lot more aggressive, a lot more dynamic, and it would make the kind of like turtling and passive playstyles a little bit worse for both sides, which I think is inevitably good for the game. And then in addition to these, I also think that after a certain amounts of time, the Rift spawns more often. So if the devs determine that like the average match is like 15-20 minutes, maybe make it to where at like 20 minutes the Rift is spawning like every 60 seconds. And you could even make it to where the Rift, like after 20 minutes, the Rift doesn't despawn on hits. Because currently, if the monster hits a teen, then the Rift despawns. Or if they get like a stun off, the Rift despawns. I think that at a certain point, either the Rift should spawn more often, or the Rift shouldn't despawn on hits. That way, it makes it where, because like the monster is going to be like more powerful towards the late game, and so the monster can more easily contest the Rift. And conversely, the monster has since they're more powerful, having like another element to where they got to focus on, like not only do they got to focus on like finishing off the match with the teens, but they also got to focus on capturing the rift, or at least contesting it, so the teens don't get the upper hand. I think that would make the gameplay a lot more interesting and make it a lot more dynamic, and it would prevent like the really like turtling like 30-minute games or 30-minute plus games. And so I think at a certain time the rift should just like not despawn, or should spawn more often. Try to incentivize gameplay a little bit more. All right, very cool. I think that would change the game a lot. Just like the rift change alone would change the game a lot. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk about, and these next couple things, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, let me talk about this first, because my last, my 9 and 10 are just going to be monster changes. So this one right here is maybe a little bit controversial, if the rift isn't. So my number 8, what I want to have happen is I want in currently in 1v1 situations, there's really not much a team can do. In 1v1 situations, if you don't have a weapon already made, you're pretty much GG. Even if you have a weapon made, it's pretty much GG, because the monsters retain their abilities to counter the weapons. The werewolf still has his howl, and he has his berserk to catch up as well. Dollmaster still has all of his dolls. It can still tank hits with his dolls. Wart still has his armor, which can just fully eat a weapon, and his leap ability where he can catch up. And so they still all have ways to counter weapons pretty directly. And so what I think should happen in 1v1 situations, the last teen should get a buff to crafting. Now, I think that's fair. Like, people will say like, oh, but they lost the game. Why should they get like help for losing the game? I think this is just more so something to like allow them to craft like the last ditch effort weapon. So like if they're they're right by like a fire station and the monster just killed the last person, they can finish off that Molotov and hope to be able to get at least like one more stigma off, instead of being caught out at like 50% and then they can't even finish it. So like you can make it to where like it doesn't even have to be like a crazy buff. It could be like a 25% increase, and I think that'd be more than enough. Just something to where people can have some gameplay at the end, just some like last ditch effort to try to hurt the monster in some way, because the monster is still going to retain all their powers, and I think that'd be fine. I don't think that would completely kill the game. I don't think that would. They would make the teams a little bit more powerful, but I don't think it would be enough to like completely change matches unless they did a really good play. And if they did a really good play, then they kind of deserve it, in my opinion. Just something to make the gameplay in game a little bit more interesting. And I think that'd be good, personally. All right, now my last couple changes are changes that I would like to see to specifically Werewolf and Dollmaster. I'm gonna go through Werewolf first, since it's a little bit shorter changes. Now, Werewolf, the problem with Werewolf is that he's a powerhouse. Like you can see in this gameplay that I've just been looping in the background. He just constantly, like, he'll get a hit, and then he'll berserk onto you. He'll just like sprint at you, and then continue getting hits over and over. And it's really hard to counter that as teen, especially when you don't have a weapon. It's more particularly when you don't have a weapon. I'll notice that a lot of times when I'm playing teen, I'll hear the werewolf, I'll hear his tension loop, which is his tear radius in this game. I'll hear his tension loop, or I'll hear his footsteps, and by the time that I hear that, I'm just already dead, because he's just so fast that I can't hide and I can't run. And so I gotta hope that like the corner that is like right next to the crafting table is just a corner he's gonna overlook. And then most times he's in his hunting mode where he can just directly pinpoint where the teen is, and so it doesn't even matter. And so what I think they need to do is, I'm sorry, werewolf means, but I think they need to nerf him a little bit in some way. I just think that he's just a little bit too effective. And there's not really much interaction for the teens to do. Like with Wart, there's a little bit of mind gaming with his tracking ability, and he's slow enough to where you can hide, or they just gain distance. Same with Dollmaster, and Dollmaster, you can just directly destroy his dolls. And so I think that they should either, and these are like different changes that they could do, either reduce his base movement or reduce the berserk movement speed. Now, this is a bit of a boring change, I will admit, and would feel bad, but it's definitely something that they could do in order to make it to where you don't just like hear the tension loop and then the next second you're already hit. Or what they could do, which is a little bit more interesting in my opinion, is increase the werewolf's tension loop. So basically make it to where he has a larger radius at which the teams are notified that he's coming because he's so aggressive. Since he's such an aggressive monster, he can close the gap so fast and he can also pinpoint them so easily. It allows them to gain a little bit more distance and be able to counterplay him hopefully a little bit more effectively, since he does have a power to where he can close the gap and he does have the ability to like pinpoint where they are. I think increasing the tension loop and giving people a little bit more warning would be more than enough. I think that would be a really good change, and I think it would make him a lot less frustrating to go against for a lot of people. And I think especially like increasing the tension loop, I don't think that's anything that's crazy. Reducing the base movement would be a very drastic change, but it would accomplish the same thing as increasing the tension loop, but it would probably introduce more problems. I think increasing the tension loop would be the more healthy change, but either would work in all honesty. All right, so Doll Master. This is the last change that I want to have happen, and these are really all the changes that I've currently seen in the game that I want to have implemented at least. So if I'm overlooking something that you have thought, again, leave in the comments down below. But this change that I want to have the Doll Master, I've played, I think I've played like 16 hours of Doll Master. So I've played a lot of Doll Master, and I've also played against him quite a bit. And I think Doll Master is a little bit too overtuned, just a bit. So what usually happens, so here's like the more frustrating part of Doll Master. I'll get into this before I explain like the changes that I want to make. So usually what happens with Doll Master is, one, I do think that part of like the reason why he's so frustrating to go against is because people just don't play against him how they should. Personally, I think the best way to go against Doll Master is to constantly be looking out for his dolls and disarming his dolls, so that you reduce his map control, and also using your weapons on the dolls. A lot of people will like edge his dolls to where they'll like damage the doll to like 99 and then stop damaging him because they don't want to waste their weapon. And I think it's just worth it to just use your weapon on the doll in order to reduce his doll count by 1, because if you don't know, if you use your weapon on the doll or if you disarm the doll with your hands, then it reduces his doll count by 1, to where instead of him having like 5 dolls to use, he only has a maximum of 4. And the way that he gets back his dolls is by getting hits. If he gets a hit, then it goes back up to, it goes up by 1. So if it goes down to 4, then if he gets a hit, then it goes back up to 5. And it can't go above like his max doll count that he has, and it's minimum at 2 dolls. He can't go below 2 dolls. But what usually happens from matches that I've seen, and I've also done this in my matches just because it's such an effective playstyle, is the Doll Master will go around and be super aggressive with his dolls, and then the teens will get off a good play and they'll manage to ambush a doll and manage to stun a doll. And unless a teen is right next to the Doll Master ready to kill the Doll Master, what usually happens, and you got to be right next to him because the stun isn't that long, what usually happens is the Doll Master will get stunned because of his doll getting killed. He'll just kind of like stand there because he knows that he's seen, he knows that his aura is exposed, and so he doesn't want to make any moves and give them any more information. And then as soon as the teens get close, then he teleports, and then he transfers, or he starts controlling a doll wherever they're running to, and then he starts getting hits off. And if they use another weapon to kill that doll, that's another weapon that they're out 2 weapons now. And then he'll transfer to another doll that's close by and try to kill them again. Maybe he gets it down, there's 3 weapons out, or they kill that doll. And it just gets to be a thing to where, and then usually by the time that they get to him again, wherever he teleported to, and say like his aura is exposed or they just find him, they're already down like 2 or 3 weapons, and so only one person can push, and the Doll Master just runs away and then has his teleport ability eventually because he's gotten so many hits. And so it just doesn't matter, and he just teleports again. And so I think that Doll Master, like, he can turtle really easily. He can just like not engage with people with his body ever. And I think what they need to do is they need to make it to where he is more so punished for his dolls being killed by weapons. And I've heard a lot of suggestions. Like, there's one suggestion that I heard where, like, maybe like the killing the dolls shouldn't completely deplete your weapon. Maybe it should just use half the charges, which is definitely interesting. But that'd be a huge nerf to Doll Master. But it's definitely something they could do. But the change that I would more so like is if they made it to where if you killed the doll, so like say like the doll is killed by a weapon. If a doll is killed by a weapon, then the Doll Master's not perks, powers are all put on a 50% cooldown. So basically, they're all put to like their 50%. So like if his teleportability I believe is like closer to 60 seconds. I don't think it's exactly 60. It could be wrong. I just don't pay. I just click buttons. I'm sorry. But if they just made it to where, like, say it's 60 seconds, they put it on like a 30-second cooldown. If his doll gets killed, that makes it to where for those 30 seconds, he has to be in his body. He can't go back to just like controlling a doll immediately. He has to go back to his body and move, because he knows that if he does get caught out in the position that he's in, because usually Doll Masters put themselves in positions to where they can be easily ambushed because there's not that many approaches, and so it's easier for him to like know somebody's approaching him. He knows that if somebody comes after him, that he needs to be able to like get out of that closed off position and go to somewhere else. And so that makes it to where the Doll Master not only can't just like keep on just tanking with his dolls, but he also has to be a lot more careful with his dolls. He can't just like run at a teen with a weapon and then be like, if I get the down, then it breaks the weapon. If the doll dies, it breaks the weapon. So it's a win-win for me. Now it actually adds like another element of, I have to down the teen with that weapon, and if I die to this weapon, yeah, it'll break their weapon, but it'll also make it to where I'm very, very easy to kill. And I think that's what should happen. He shouldn't just like have the ability to teleport just when he's like made a bad play and he's in a bad situation. If he makes a bad play, his doll gets stunned like that, then he should be punished for that. And so I think making it to where the Doll Master's powers are all put on a 50% cooldown, to where he can't control a doll for a little bit. Obviously, the doll, the controlling is on less of a cooldown than less of like a max cooldown than teleporting. But if he just like can't control a doll for like a few seconds, and then he also can't like set down a doll for a few seconds, and then his teleport ability is on like a 20-30 second cooldown, it makes it to where he's a lot less effective at turtling, and he has to play a lot smarter. And so I think that this would make it to where the Doll Masters that are like play a lot more passively, that don't play as strategically, they just try to eat weapons with the dolls, they are a lot more punished, and so they have to play smarter. And the Doll Masters that play smarter, they won't feel this change as much because they're already trying to play like super smart and aggressive, and they'll be able to work around this. And so I think that would be a really good change, and it would make his gameplay a lot more interesting for the teen side, instead of just constantly having it to where you just run out of weapons eventually because he just keeps on teleporting and just eating the weapons with his dolls. And so I think that would make the gameplay a lot more dynamic. In addition to this is more of a change that has annoyed me when I'm playing teen against Doll Master. Add priority for doll disarm. Now, what do I mean by that? It's a relatively smaller change than the 50% cooldown one. I am very annoyed because there will be Doll Masters that will put their dolls right on top of crafting stations, like right next to them. And I don't know if they do it intentionally or if that's just where they put them, but I will go up to the doll and I'll get the prompt for disarming, and then I'll move a little bit, and then immediately with me moving just like a fraction of an inch, it'll change from the prompt to disarm to the prompt to craft, and I'll get sucked to the crafting, and then the doll will start to freak out, and the Doll Master just starts controlling the doll, and I get hit. And that is so frustrating. Let me tell you, it is so frustrating, because when you're by the Doll Master knows that you're by it, and so you need to be able to disarm it as soon as you can. And so you're just pressing the button as soon as you see it, and sometimes as soon as you see it, you're still moving, and so you just get stuck to the crafting table. So it's not as simple as, oh, just like don't move, because a lot of situations you don't have a choice because you're constantly trying to like get as close as you can before the doll master can do anything. And so I just want them to add priority. It's not like that would only benefit the team. Like there's no situation that I can imagine where you don't want to disarm the doll unless you're like trying to like coax him out, but even then you're just gonna run up to it and activate it. So just add priority to where if the doll is right next to like an interactable, whether it be like a healing station or somebody that is on the ground or like a crafting station, you disarm the doll first before anything else. I think that would be good. That would be very, very good. And even if it gets in the situation of like a doll master like putting a doll on top of the body and you want to pick up the slug instead, the slug can just like crawl away. And so it's not that big of a deal. I mean, by slug, I mean like the person that's on the ground. So add priority to doll disarm so people can't just like put the doll on crafting stations and then get easy hits because of that. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's my 10 changes. I know this is a very long-winded video. May not be very interesting for those that aren't interested in VHS, I suppose, but if you're not interested in VHS, I don't know why you're watching this video. And if it's not interesting for those of you that have played VHS or that are interested, I apologize. I just more so wanted this video to try to like say the things that I think are currently not so like wrong with the game, but things that I think would make the game better, just so I can have something to link people when they ask, and just so I can have my thoughts just in video form, so that maybe my ideas can be valuable, because I don't think my ideas are gospel. I think that the devs have a vision for their game that is something that even like me or like anybody else can really imagine, and they know the direction that they want to go with it. And so my ideas, like, they may have considered them, but there may be a reason why they didn't go in the direction that my ideas are in, and that's definitely possible and it's definitely valid. And so even if like none of these changes went through the game ever, I wouldn't be upset, just because I know the devs are very smart and they're very good people, and whatever direction they're going to try to take the game is going to be the best direction that they see fit. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. If you want to know when my videos go live, they go live every day, 12 p.m. Pacific time. If you want to know exactly when they go live, you can I think there's a bell icon that you can push and it notifies you. I go live on Twitch every single day, twitch.tv/TricksterShadow, link in the description down below. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, and thank you for watching, and bye-bye.